Before we hop into this video, I'd like to announce that I have a brand new light. I'm gonna be entirely honest with y'all, it's actually a lot better than I thought it would. Look, it can change different colors too. Like this really amazed me. Look, I'm blue now. And now I'm just regular boring color. And now I'm yellow. Returning subscribers, please let me know your thoughts on this, comparing this light to my other light that I used to have. Anyways, now enough about lights. Let's talk about some trade deadline stuff. Time is ticking down for the trade deadline. It is on March 21st, and we have many different players potentially being traded this year. JT Miller is one of them, Jakob Chychrun's another, and Jake DeBrusk is among those names as well. So what I have done for this video is compiled a bunch of different players together and put them into mock trades and just see how you guys think of them. I'll be honest with you, some of these trades may be wildly unrealistic, so you're going to have to get ready for some big ones here. And I could get some nasty comments. But before we hop into this video, if you guys have not already subscribed, it would be greatly appreciated if you did so. The channel's been growing as of late, and we'd like to keep that going. But regardless, let's hop into the video, starting off with the players that will be featured. Some of these players, I'm going to put on the screen right now. I'm not going to list any of them. Some of these players have been featured in a video that we made in this past month, talking about 15 trade bait players and ranking them. Some of these guys are new. Some of these guys, maybe I didn't talk about much. And some of these guys I've already discussed in that previous video. So I won't be going in depth with those guys. If you want to see more in-depth coverage of those guys, you can go to my video on the eye icon right now. So we are going to start off with one of the brand new players that we're covering in this video, forward JT Miller of the Vancouver Canucks. So JT Miller is a brand new player that we have not discussed in regards to trades. Miller, I've mentioned in other videos talking about the Vancouver Canucks that Miller plays a whole different level of hockey. I like him that way. He plays with that grit. He plays with that offensive power. He also takes penalties, but it is a part of his game. But he will be a very big asset to the team that he gets traded to if he gets traded this deadline. Now, my ideal team to see JT Miller head off to would have to be a return to an old team, the New York Rangers. My ideal trade would be JT Miller along with a 5th-round pick heading over to the Rangers in exchange for quite the package for Vancouver. Vitaly Kravtsov, who Vancouver has shown interest in, by the way. Libor Hajek, who's kind of a depth defender type player. He'd be good for Vancouver's depth, and as well as that, a 2022 first-round pick. I feel like both teams win in that scenario. Vancouver gets some much-needed depth and some prospects and even a first-round pick in return. And New York gets an offensive forward in JT Miller, which they've kind of been struggling with. I mean, it's more of a New York's been more of a defensive team this season with, obviously, Shesterkin and all that. And I think the 5th-round pick is kind of just the icing on the cake to make this an even trade. Now, for this next player, he does not need a discussion. We already covered him in our previous video. We're talking about a player on a team that wasn't really supposed to be bad this season, but now they're kind of screwed. We're talking about Philadelphia Flyers forward and captain CLAUDE GIROUX. Definitely one of the bigger players being moved this trade deadline. My ideal location for CLAUDE GIROUX is over in Denver with the Colorado Avalanche. Now, it is going to come down between Colorado and Florida. Those are my two teams that he could get traded to, but I picked Colorado for this one mainly because of the interest around Justin Barron and Sampo Ranta with Flyers scouting. So the Avalanche would get CLAUDE GIROUX. That's the only guy they would get. They wouldn't get any picks. The Philadelphia Flyers, on the other hand, would get defenseman Justin Barron, forward Sampo Ranta, and a first-round pick. That might be a little bit of an underwhelming return to some Philadelphia fans, but to be honest with you, I mean, getting CLAUDE GIROUX out of Philadelphia, it's going to be a heartbreaker for especially me, mainly because I'm in the Philadelphia area, and he's been the face of the Flyers for so long. And, I mean, when you look at this, I mean, those are two very young players, but that could aid them where they decide to go for a rebuild, that could do it. And I feel like, to be honest with you, some fans have been saying that CLAUDE GIROUX does not really get the team going as much as he used to as a captain. So maybe him being removed would kind of help the Flyers a little bit. Now, for our third player in this video, we're going to head over to Quebec, where we have a team that made it Stanley Cup Finals last year and is now doing horrible. And now they have a lot of trade options this year's deadline. We're going to talk about defenseman Ben Chiarot. Now, you may be wondering why I'm wearing a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey when we're talking about a Habs player. Well, that's because that's where I have Ben Chiarot going. He's going to go over to the Toronto Maple Leafs for a first-round pick, Justin Hall, and Pontus Holmberg. Now, I'm going to start off right now. Do I think people are overrating the hell out of Chiarot? Hell yes. He is not worth a first-round pick. He is not worth a top 4 D-man in Justin Hall. No way in hell. But I'm basing this off of rumors. And there's been rumors of the Habs trying to go for Justin Hall. There's been rumors of the Leafs trying to trade Justin Hall. And there's been rumors of the Leafs trying to trade for Ben Sherratt. So it all connects together. And the first-round pick is because the asking price is a first-round pick, and people could trade a first-round pick for him, which I think is ridiculous. Advanced stats prove that he is not good. And then Pontus Holmberg is really just kind of a depth kind of prospect. I think he's a B, C level prospect. I mean, he's not that big. Do I think Toronto makes this trade? Heck no. They'd probably go out for Jacob Chikrin if they're going to go out for those with that much to pay for Sherratt. Like, that's unbelievable. But that's what I'm basing it off of. I'm basing it off of rumors, truly. Now, we're going from all the way up north for a trade bait player all the way to down south for a trade bait player. We're going to look at Dallas Stars defenseman John Klingberg, the first player that we've talked about so far that has publicly requested a trade. There is no introduction needed for John Klingberg, as we discussed him not only in the trade video, but as well as a video on the Dallas Stars themselves. Icon for that. Anyways, my destination for John Klingberg is the Carolina Hurricanes, a team who could very well win the Cup, and they are my picks to win the Cup. Now, there have been talks of them looking at another top 4 defenseman dealing with injury issues with Tony DeAngelo and other guys on the team. So John Klingberg has definitely been looked at. They looked at Klingberg even before he requested a trade. So that's interesting there. So my ideal destination would be John Klingberg over to Carolina with nothing else. In exchange, Dallas would get a first-round pick, a third-round pick, and Jamieson Rees, who is a very solid B-level prospect for the Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes have quite a deep prospect pool, but that's what happens when you rebuild for like 10 years. As we reach the halfway mark of this video, we are finally going to talk about a new player we have not discussed yet. This player popped up in trade rumors after I made my rankings video of 15 players. It is Nashville Predators forward Filip Forsberg. Now, this is not the first time that Forsberg has popped up on the trade bait radar. Forsberg popped up on this before last season when the Predators were struggling, but they had a complete turnaround and made it to the playoffs. Did they last long? No. At the start of this season, people thought that the Predators were going to suck, but they actually did pretty good. Now, they're kind of falling off a little bit, so it makes you wonder, will they trade Forsberg? Now, they have come out publicly and said, we're not trying to trade him, we're trying to sign him. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to take advantage of the video. Now, we're at the climax of this video where the trades are going to get pretty crazy. So, you need to prepare yourself. They may be unrealistic, but I still made them. This one I made with my friend at XBetch, aka Matt. He's a good friend of mine. Make sure to go follow his TikTok. And yeah, let's get into this trade regarding Filip Forsberg. Now, in this trade, I had Filip Forsberg going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins kind of rely on their first line too much. They need kind of a middle six, second line forward to really solidify the team. And Forsberg, maybe he's a first line forward, but I feel like on the Pens with Crosby, Gensel, etc., he'd probably play second line. So let's take a look here. Forsberg is obviously a really high price. So here's what I have going back to Pittsburgh. Filip Forsberg and a 6th-round pick. Going back to Nashville, and this is when it gets crazy, Evgeny Malkin. Malkin's on an expiring contract, has not done too much for Pittsburgh, and since he's come to the Pittsburgh lineup, the Pens have lost games. So maybe that's telling you maybe we need to trade Malkin, or maybe they go the other route. Maybe you could swap this with a Tang. I'd be perfectly fine with that, but for this one, I have Malkin. As long as that Pierre-Olivier Joseph going back the other way for Nashville, so they would be getting a solid prospect there, a solid defensive prospect, and a first-round pick for this year and a second-round pick for this year. That might be too steep of a bargain for Forsberg, or that might be too low of a bargain for Forsberg. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. Now, if you thought that trade was crazy, this trade is 25 times crazier. This one's between two players, number 6 and 7, that we're going to talk about today. Boston Bruins forward Jake DeBrusk and Arizona Coyotes defenseman Jacob Chikrin. Now, this trade is our first and only 3-way trade, and it's probably incredibly unrealistic because Boston's giving up a ton here. But you know what? We're still going to talk about it. So the Arizona Coyotes trade over Jacob Chikrin to the Boston Bruins. That's what it starts off with. Boston gives away Jake DeBrusk, their first-round pick for 2022, Zach Senyshyn, and Jack Studnicka. That's a lot there. That's a lot of guys. Senyshyn's not the biggest. DeBrusk and Studnicka, two fairly young guys. They definitely get playing time in Arizona. That would be unreal. Seattle comes in, takes away 40% of Chikrin's salary, but along with that, they take Boston's 2023 first round pick. This is a completely unbelievable, well, maybe not completely unrealistic trade, but it's incredibly unlikely that it happens if Boston gives up 2 of their first round picks. It is unbelievably unrealistic, but it is a very fun trade to include in here. So I want to know your guys' thoughts on this one in the comments below. Now, moving away from those 2 crazy trades, we're going to go talk about a player all the way out west in Anaheim with the Anaheim Ducks. I have not talked about the Ducks in a while, so we're obviously going to need an introduction on this player. We're talking about a fallen goal scorer, or maybe a risen back goal scorer in Rickard Rakell. Now, statistically, Rakell could probably score a potential of 25 to 30 goals a season, but with the Ducks team that he's playing on, he's kind of fallen off a little bit. Now, the Ducks have definitely been better this season. I won't deny that at all. They have a chance of making the playoffs, but they're kind of on the outside looking in right now. Vegas has kind of overtaken them, and although they still have a chance of getting in, the odds are kind of low. Now, they have been looking at trying to trade Rakell for many years. This is not the first time he's popped up in trade rumors. He's popped up many times before. But I feel like this year is definitely going to be the year where we could see him get moved. Now, speaking of the devil, my ideal destination for Rickard Rakell is the Vegas Golden Knights, one of their Pacific rivals. Now, think of Rakell as like this year's Matthias Janmark for Vegas. I feel like Vegas has a lot of injury issues right now. Mark Stone's out. Martinez is out. There's a lot of issues in Vegas right now, and there are some chances that they don't make the playoffs with a team like Anaheim potentially overtaking them of a spot. Now, Rakell could be a very prominent role, coming in as a guy like Janmark did last year, scoring in some goals and putting in Vegas's playoff odds and increasing it much more. Now, Rakell will go to Vegas for a 3rd-round pick, and Nicholas Waugh, who is a very underrated, probably bottom 6 forward for the Anaheim Ducks at this point. And I feel like playing with, the guys like Zegras and Steele and those guys, I feel like he would play pretty solid with them. And I feel like Roy would have a better shot at making a legitimate NHL roster than he would in such a powerhouse city like Vegas. Now, for player number 9, we're traveling over to Pennsylvania once again. This one's going to be in regards to Pittsburgh Penguins forward Kasperi Kapanen. Now, Kapanen was traded over to the Pittsburgh Penguins over 2 years ago from the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't think I made a video covering it, but if I did, I'll put it in the eye icon right here. But anyways, his first year was actually pretty good. Now, this year, there's a lot of Pens fans in the organization that are very frustrated with the way Kapanen has played this season, and he's become a prime member for the Pittsburgh Penguins trade block. And for this one, my ideal destination for Kasperi Kapanen is up in the West Coast, Vancouver once again. Now, this one is a crazy trade. It's another crazy trade involving another big Canucks player that we did not specify in this one. So Kapanen would go to the Penguins. My ideal destination for Kapanen will be for him to go over to the Vancouver Canucks along with Pierre-Olivier Joseph and a first-round pick in exchange for Brock Besser. Now, this is not related to the Forsberg trade at all. Pretend the Forsberg trade does not happen. Let's say the Penguins get Besser. Besser's been in trade rumors for the Penguins. He's been linked to the Penguins for years. Maybe this is the year they finally get him. Now, for the price of Kapanen and Joseph and a first-round pick, it's probably pretty unrealistic. It's probably maybe even more unrealistic than the Forsberg deal. But you know what? It's still an interesting trade to throw in here, and I want you guys to let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, to end off this video, we're going to go from Steel City over to the Rain City, or whatever they call Seattle, to look at Kraken defenseman and captain Mark Giordano. Now, as we mentioned previously in this video with the John Klingberg trade, we mentioned that Carolina may be looking at another top 4 defenseman. Now, they've also been looking at Mark Giordano, too. Now, this one is not as steep as the Klingberg trade. For this one, the Carolina Hurricanes would acquire Mark Giordano, and the Kraken would acquire a 2nd-round pick, a 3rd-round pick, and prospect Vasily Ponomarev. I feel like it's worth it, Carolina giving up those picks, and that B-level prospect for a guy like Giordano. To be honest with you, I know Giordano's being priced as the 1st-round pick. I'm sorry, I don't really see it. I don't see them getting a 1st-round pick for Giordano. I see them getting probably a 2nd and a 3rd at best, and probably a B-level prospect. But you know what? Ron Francis has his ways, and I mean, yeah, that'll conclude this video. So that concludes 10 mock trades for 10 or maybe a little bit more different players for the 2022 trade deadline. Some of these trades you may think may be stupid, they may be heavily unrealistic, I might be on some kind of drug, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed making one of these videos for the first time in a couple of weeks, and for those who stick around to the end, thank you. It has most definitely not been easy balancing this out with school and many other things going on in my life, so I really thank you guys for sticking around right until the end of this video, because this video did take a long time to make. If you guys want to go see some more of my videos, hey, click the eye icon. There's playlists, there's some videos that I discussed in here, and you can just dive in and take a look, please. And I mean, if this is the first video you're watching, you made it to the end, first of all, thank you. And second, if you could subscribe, that would be amazing. You know, being a 15-year-old kid just trying to make YouTube videos, trying to live his dream, you know, it'd be great to earn some new subscribers and some new friends, to be honest with you. But anyways, I won't waste any more of your time. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.